So let's talk about all the books I read this summer. Hello, what's up? Welcome back to Baddie and a Book. My name is Gabby, and today we are doing a summer 2022 book wrap up. I don't have nearly as many books as you typically would see in a book review here on BookTube. I work a 9 to 5. I got shit to do. I don't have that many, but there are a few that, with starting my book journey, that I read over the summer that I really wanted to speak on and give my thoughts on here on BookTube. So yeah, we're gonna jump right into the first book. I'm not going to give any spoilers away about the books. I'm not gonna really go heavy into the plots of each book. A lot of book wrap-up videos, they do say spoiler free, but then they still give a lot of details about the book itself, which can in itself be a spoiler, because even though you may not know the full details of like the specific plot twist or something specifically that happens in the book that is a big deal, knowing enough details about a book can actually alter your experience with the book. And that's not what I want to do here. I just kind of want to give my thoughts, give some pointers, give if it's a recommendation or something I recommend reading, give that to you guys, and then leave it at that. If we want to do a full review on a book, I will most definitely do that, which will contain spoilers. But for these videos specifically, I will not be doing that, just to save from being spoiled, because I do not want to spoil you guys. So with that being said, the first book that I read was The Wives by Taryn Fisher. This is a psychological thriller. This one is only about like 300 pages, roughly. It was a very easy read. It was a very quick read, and it was something that I could not put down. This one follows a woman with her husband who has multiple wives. You just have to read it in order to get the premise. Anything that I could say about this book would just be a spoiler in itself, so I definitely recommend it, especially if you're new to the thriller world. This is a very it's a very easy, quick start. It's a very easy, I'm gonna pick this one up and read it today type of book. Definitely recommend it. I will say that I'm not a thriller reader. This is my first thriller that I've ever read. So with that being said, there were times when I could predict what was gonna happen next, or I could predict the plot twist that was gonna happen, right? But I will say that for me personally, I like a thriller that I can kind of do both with. So I get hyped when there's a plot twist that I was not expecting and it like fucks with you. I'm hyped for that. I'm also hyped for a book that I can predict it, because I'm like, oh shit, I knew that was gonna happen. Like, that's just me when I read a book. So that didn't necessarily bother me. And I will say that still, even at the end, I was still kind of mind fucked. There were certain parts I was like, whoa, wait. I gotta go back. I'm like, wait, what? So this was definitely an enjoyable read for me, a quick read, and definitely recommend this one. For the next couple of books that I read, I really wanted to kind of dip my toes into this particular author, because she is the most talked about author here on BookTok, BookTube, anything internet wise on the internet that is in relation to books. This author is mentioned, and that is Miss Colleen Hoover. So the first book that I picked up was November 9 by Colleen Hoover. First and foremost, I'm really happy that I got the original cover of this book, because they have since changed it. So I bought this at the perfect time, because I don't know if you can actually buy this cover anymore. But with that being said, I did read this all in one sitting. For Miss Colleen Hoover specifically, it is the first liners for me. The first lines of the book, like, just suck you in. You're just sucked in at that point. But essentially, this follows Fallon and Ben. It takes place in LA on November 9th of every year for, I believe, 6 years or so. And you're essentially just following their love story. And with that being said, let's look at this first liner of this book. So the first liner of this is, I wonder what kind of sound it would make if I were to smash this glass against the side of its head. Because specifically with Colleen Hoover, with the 3 books that I've read from her, it's kind of like she drops this like heavy ass first liner and you're like, wait, what? what the fuck is she talking about? And then it makes you want to read more. I definitely recommend this one. It was a really good read. It was a really enjoyable read. I wouldn't say it like knocked it out of the park. I wouldn't say that like I was like, oh my god, like this is fucking amazing. I wouldn't say that, but it was a really good read, and her writing is extremely addictive. Like, she just has a way of writing a book that makes you not want to put it down. And for me, that was my experience with this book, along with the other books that I'm getting ready to show as well. So I definitely do recommend that. I will say, before I move on, this book is actually a dual POV, so you do get the point of views of both characters, Fallon and Ben. Next book that I picked up was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Again, another really easy read, another really anticipated read for me. Out of all of them, I think this was the one that I was most excited about and that I had heard the most about, that I felt would be the most intriguing for me specifically. The first line of this book is, "Somebody stabbed you in the neck, young lady." Ooh, alrighty. This one is also dual POV, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it's very interesting to get two different characters' point of view. Me specifically, I really love getting the guys' point of views in these two books specifically. So I really enjoyed that aspect of these books. Again, this book specifically, so this one is a brother's best friend / enemies to lovers, but subjective, because depending on who you talk to, just on the basis of how they met and how their relationship first started, there are some people that will say that this is not a true enemies to lovers. They just kind of met on bad terms. The last book that I picked up by Colleen Hoover, which is her most recent book and also the most hyped book, at least as of today, is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So this one follows Lily, and this one is a single point of view, so you really only get Lily's point of view throughout this book. But I really enjoyed that it kind of went back and forth between past and present. So I really thoroughly enjoyed that. There is a love triangle sort of that goes on in this book, which I thought was extremely interesting. Those were the 3 Colleen Hoover books that I read this month. I will say, especially with It Ends With Us specifically, okay, I really thoroughly enjoyed Colleen Hoover's writing. I really thoroughly enjoyed each and every single book, all 3 of them. I couldn't put either of them down. I read them all in one sitting. The first lines of the books kind of sucked you in, and then I just kept wanting to read more, and I kept wanting to find out what happened next, and I wanted to find out how the story ended. But I did not, especially with It Ends With Us. Everyone kept saying that this book was so heart-wrenching, and oh my god, it was just so great, and oh my god, I was crying. And like, for me, I consider myself to be an extremely emotional person, but I did not have that experience with either of these books, but specifically with It Ends With Us. It was definitely heavy in certain topics, but at the same time it wasn't. I'm just waiting for, specifically with Colleen Hoover, for that book that's gonna blow me away. And I didn't feel like, with these 3 books being the most popular books that are talked about now, like in every book haul, every book review, like every booktuber that's out there has reviewed these books. They have hauled these books and they rave about them. So with the amount of hype surrounding these books, I find that they just it wasn't giving. It just really wasn't giving. And that's why it's so important, like, when I'm making videos, why I don't want to give spoilers away, and I'm very heavy on not giving spoilers away in books, because I feel like between the spoilers and the hype surrounding this book, it just was not giving. Like, even if you give a very small detail away about a book, it still adds up over time. Even if you're just giving certain characteristics of the characters, certain backgrounds of the characters, if you're hinting to something that's going to happen in the book, like you're already going into the book expecting for something to happen. Like, it just, I don't know, like, I loved reading them. I thoroughly enjoyed reading them. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience with them. I enjoy her writing so much because like I said, those first liners, and then also constantly wanting to pick up the book again, that's definitely giving. But what wasn't giving was the heaviness of the emotions in this book. I don't know where everyone's getting the I was sobbing kind of emotion from this book, because it was very heavy, but it wasn't, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I just did not have that experience with it. The other thing too that I wanted to kind of touch on with these books is I noticed that there are a lot of young girls that are reading this book. So I'm grown. I'm 26. I'm grown. And I don't know if I would want my 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old self to read these books, at least with where I was at in life during that time frame, just because these books can very easily, if you're not grown and you kind of don't know any better, how do I want to say that? Yeah, I guess if you kind of don't know any better, and also with the nature of how relationships are today, with all of the toxicity, with all of the disrespect, with all of the all over the place, with so many broken rules, with so many things in the dating world today, these very much so can very easily be misconstrued to be glamorizing some of the trigger warnings that are in these books, some of the traumas that are addressed. And so with that specifically alone, I don't know if I would want my 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old self reading these books without having an idea first of what an actual relationship is supposed to be like, what it's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like, but also not being able to separate the fact that these are just books. These are just books. These are just people's stories. So editing Gabby checking in here. I wanted to quickly piggyback off of the point that I just made, because I thought I mentioned this in the video, but I guess I didn't. So I think that this could potentially be harmful to someone who is a little bit younger, who may not realize what a healthy relationship is versus what not a healthy relationship is, and who's still trying to learn all of that, because the stories kind of gloss over certain character traits in both the main character and the love interest. If you're younger and don't separate the fact that these are just stories and these are not real life, then you could very easily fall into thinking that some of these traits are desirable, that some of these traits are, you know, what you'd want in real life, and even some of the relatable things in the characters, because I recognize some things in some of the characters that I went through when I was that age, when I was a little bit younger. And now that I'm a little bit older and I see things a little bit differently now I know that some of those things, those little hints of low confidence and those little hints of low self-esteem were things that I needed to truly work through. So long story short, went on a little tangent there, but there are also characteristics of both the male characters from a female perspective and the female characters from a female perspective that are concerning for the purposes of younger readers reading these books. So yeah, back to my tangent. Just know that these are not true representations of the way that real relationships are supposed to be. And if you don't go into the book knowing that, you could very easily misconstrue or misunderstand these stories to be what it's supposed to look like and feel like and all of that. So that is just my sense on it. I liked certain characteristics of the characters. I disliked some characteristics as well. There were some pieces of the character specifically, and it ends with us, that kind of pissed me off a little bit in the character, just being brutally honest. But I think that is part of the story, and I think that is part of the journey with reading these characters' stories. And yeah, so that's my little spiel on Colleen Hoover so far. Again, I'm still waiting for the book that's going to blow me away. So maybe it's one of her other books, but these ones just did not, as great as they are of stories, they did not blow me away. They did not blow me away. They just didn't. So yeah, that is that. The next book that I picked up, I needed to get a break from the Colleen Hoover. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different and not get sucked into Colleen Hoover because, again, she has great writing. So it's very easy for someone to pick up one of her books and want to pick up the next one. So I kind of wanted to spread out my Colleen Hoover reads, and I wanted to pick up a different author. So I picked up One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is a kind of like, I guess you could consider this to be a love triangle. The character's name is Emma. It takes place in the state of Massachusetts. This book, I will say, how do I explain this book without explaining it? So you're literally only getting Emma's point of view in this book. And the one thing I will say about this book is I thoroughly enjoyed it. She was another author that I couldn't put the book down, and I was constantly finding myself like, oh my God, what happens next? What happens next? I want to know what the fuck happens next. With this book specifically though, I don't love the ending. It's the ending for me, and there are some other opinions that I have about Emma's journey throughout this book and the story that I don't know if I agree with, and I just don't know. Like, specifically, if you were in her situation, if I was in her situation, I wouldn't know. Her situation in this book is not something that you really know what you would do unless you're in that situation. So sitting on this side of the book and just reading the story, I would like to think that I would have handled things a whole lot differently. But I guess you just never really know. But I have my own opinions about this book, the ending specifically. And just all I'll say about this one is that this one was a good book. It was something that I would definitely recommend for someone to get like a quick little easy read. There's a few little plot twists and stuff here and there, and the author kind of keeps you guessing as far as what's going to happen at the end, which I thoroughly did enjoy. But I would assume that she has better books, but I don't know. But that is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. After picking up that book, I decided to pick up After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book follows Lauren and Ryan, and it's essentially about their marriage being on the rocks. With this book specifically, it goes, the one thing that I really liked about this book, it is only one person POV, but it goes back and forth between past and present for a moment in the book, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. I really enjoyed how it was done. Another book that I could not put down. I had a really good reading month because all of these books were books that I just could not put down, which I thoroughly did enjoy. With this specifically, I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed reading the book. This book is about 300 pages again, so something that's easily read in a day or two, and I did thoroughly enjoy that. The last book that I read this summer was It's Something Happened to Allie Greenleaf by Haley Krischer. So this book, I didn't actually hear about this book anywhere on the internet. I went to Books A Million, and this was in their bargain section. I saw it, I read the back of the book, and I also read the inner flap of the book, and I was like, this seems really, really interesting. This book was really well written. I think this is her debut book, if I'm not mistaken, because I did look at the reviews on Amazon. And essentially, long story short, it's a dual POV. You're following the main character, which is Allie Greenleaf, and then you're also following another character in the book. There is something traumatic that happens to the main character in the book, and you're just essentially following her journey through that process of the aftermath of it happening. The other thing about this book too was that it's a YA book, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I could see it being a YA, but this book was very heavy in that topic of the traumatic experience. So I don't know. Like, I definitely wouldn't recommend this to a teenager. Like, you would have to at least be 18 or 19 to read this book. But this one was another book that I could not put down. This was phenomenally written, which I really appreciate. The cover is absolutely beautiful. I love the cover of this book. I traveled with this book, so I ended up kind of messing it up a little bit. I may end up buying another one just so that I can like fix this kind of surface level. But yeah, this book, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I probably would end up reading it again in a future in a future time frame. I don't know, but I did thoroughly enjoy this book. But yeah, there's nothing more else that I could really say about it. Oh, this book also takes place in high school. It didn't feel too immature either. Some of the dynamics of the characters, it really exposed their age, and it really exposed them being so young. But I think that was kind of the point of the story. You know what I mean? Like, I think that gave more to the story, and it gave more of a perspective on the mindset of young kids while something like this does happen. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the books that I read this month. I had a really good reading month. I didn't read like a number of books. I didn't read a crazy number of books, but I got a pretty decent amount of books read, and I thoroughly enjoyed each and every single one of them. I didn't have a bad read, which that's a successful month to me, or that's a successful summer to me, a successful season, you know, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that is my summer 2022 reading wrap up. So I just realized I never filmed an outro for this video. Those are all of the books that I read over the summertime. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll check you guys in the next one. Bye.